I really can do a lot of things even with arthritis, and I don't have to be embarrassed, and I don't have to let it limit me. And so just those two changing points stuck with me throughout my life.
Hi everyone, welcome back to this week's episode on Take a Pain Check. I'm so excited to have Aubrey joining me today. Hi Aubrey, can you give me a brief introduction about yourself? Tell me a little bit about your diagnosis, your hobbies, your career, what you've been up to recently.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here and share my story. So my name is Aubrey Mills. I'm 24 years old. I was diagnosed with juvenile idiopathic arthritis when I was 8 years old, and it affects most of my joints today. But I try not to let it stop me. I'm pretty busy staying super involved with the Arthritis Foundation. I just finished my teaching credential program. So in the fall, I'm hoping to have a full-time teaching position. I was just doing student teaching in a couple of different classrooms throughout the past year and a half, which has been a great experience. I still work at the arthritis camp that I used to go to. That's a medical camp for many different diagnoses year-round. So definitely staying busy, and I love to do whatever I can to help spread awareness that kids get arthritis too.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I'm excited to talk a lot about your story today, Aubrey. So can you tell me a little bit about what led you to see a healthcare professional?
Yeah, so when I was pretty young when I was diagnosed. I was around 8 when I first started having symptoms, and basically it started with just my left knee. So I was having a lot of pain in my leg. I would always just complain to my mom that my leg was hurting when I was playing outside or things like that, or sometimes just when I woke up in the morning. I was limping a lot. And one kind of funny story was that like she would see like whenever she was taking a picture of me, she would see me like kind of pop out like my knee weird, and she thought I was just like posing at first, but really I was like couldn't really fully straighten my leg. So there was a lot of little signs like that just seemed off with my leg. And then slowly it got more and more painful, and I wasn't wanting to do as many like active activities and things like that. So we started going to different doctors, first just like a general pediatrician, and they thought that it was just like growing pains and nothing too concerning. So we went a couple different times to that when it wasn't really getting better. And I got referred to an orthopedic surgeon, and he saw that my knee was very swollen and red. And I had only described my pain as like my leg, and I guess people hadn't really looked close at like the knee, which was really swollen. So that was like the biggest sign that it was like a joint problem rather than like a foot or like a structural issue and things like that, or just like a regular growing pain. So then he referred me to a pediatric rheumatologist to get the official diagnosis when I was 8, and I got a diagnosis pretty quickly after that. So I was pretty lucky, since most people can go a very long time before getting a diagnosis. And then for a while, it was just like my left knee for a while. And then when I got a little older, I got into remission for a little bit. And then it kind of affected me more in middle school, high school, with kind of more all my joints. And that's where I am today.
Looking at where you are now and your symptoms when you were initially diagnosed, has it definitely changed? Like, do you think you are now able to manage your condition better?
I do definitely think so. I was on a lot of different medications for a while. Actually, the beginning of my journey was probably the easiest. It was obviously overwhelming at first getting diagnosed, but then I got it under control very quickly with just like naproxen and a couple quick like joint fluid procedures, things like that. But then it was pretty calm for a few years, and then around middle school, it kind of came back in more full force. But by that time, it was a little while of trying to find medications and insurance struggles and all that, like we all know. And then once I hit kind of like the beginning of college, I've been pretty good. I still have flare-ups and pain, but I am pretty used to handling it and knowing my body. And the Actemra infusions that I was most recently put on, but it's still already been a few years, but that's been my most recent medication, and it's been working really well. So I do feel pretty stable overall.
Have you been on a lot of different medications? Because I know for me, I've been on so many different ones. What was your journey like?
Yeah, so when I first started injections, after things got worse and kind of spread all over the body, and we saw that it was a longer issue that wasn't going to be fixed with like anti-inflammatories or things like that, I was first suggested to go on Enbrel, but insurance denied it, saying it was too expensive. So then we had to do the step therapy. I don't know if that's a thing in Canada too, but we had to like try a few different ones before we could get to what the doctor wanted. So I did methotrexate for a couple months, but I had pretty bad side effects with like nausea lasting like almost the whole week and just feeling really sick and headaches and dizzy. So I chose to kind of stop it after a couple months because it wasn't working and it wasn't worth the side effects for me. And then I was able to try Humira, which worked for a couple years, which was every other week doing an injection. And then I was off it for a little while, and then at my next floor I went on infusions, and that's been the best for me. And I'm really happy with Actemra so far, every 4 weeks, and that's been super good and lucky for me to be doing really well.
That's good. I was on that, like, I think a while back, a few years ago, and it didn't work for me, but I think that just goes to show that not every medication is going to work for everyone. Living with JIA is very different for everyone, and so I'm glad it's working for you. Do you find that you're using pain management strategies on the side, or is it kind of just like medication?
I do get more pain and symptoms when it gets closer to like the end of my like amount of time between the infusions. So when it gets to that point, or if I know I have like a big week of like traveling or just a flare where I'm having more pain than usual, then I do like ice or heat pads, which kind of is more just like temporary relief, obviously, but that helps a little bit sometimes. I haven't really found anything like super major that's helped. Obviously the medication, but then also just kind of like trying to have a good sleep schedule and listening to my body more to not overdo it has been the best for me. I tend to want to like never say no to anything, but I'm trying to get better about listening to my body, and that's helped in general with the pain.
That's really great. And I know you have been pretty busy in terms of, getting your career started. Before we talk about that, can you tell me about how you or others around you advocated for yourself during the time to get a diagnosis?
I was, of course, very young, so I wasn't doing as much of the advocating yet. My parents were my biggest advocates at different doctor's appointments and for like talking to my teachers about accommodations I would need and things like that in the beginning. But as I grew up a little bit, I was able to do more of the talking and speaking up for myself. It's always been kind of hard for me to ask for help and things like that, but I've learned to listen to my body and be more confident to help spread awareness and just speak up for my needs so that, for instance, at school, I can do the best I can do, or at sports, I can get the care taken so that I can succeed and things like that. So as I got older, it definitely got easier. I had really amazing friends all my life pushing me to speak up for myself and making me more confident, starting with friends and then getting more confident to speak up in doctor's appointments and things like that, or fighting insurance for getting the medications I need. So I learned from my parents in the beginning, and then I was inspired by different support systems and friends and things like that to be able to push myself to be able to speak up for what I need, whether it was beginning or as new flare-ups came and my health changed and things like that.
Thanks for sharing that. I know that there's lots of places when you are diagnosed where you have to advocate for yourself, like the healthcare setting, the school setting, workplace. Like it just gets to be a lot as you're growing up, and then building those skills are so important, especially at a young age. I was wondering, because you've been on so many medications, you talked about like the different medications you've been on and the process, which is so frustrating as a patient. I think for me, I hate the fact that we have to be on this certain medications in order to like be qualified for other medications, knowing that those ones won't work for us. Like, it's just ridiculous, but that's the process in the system. What were the side effects that you experienced on different medications?
Methotrexate was the biggest one that comes to mind, just because it was so severe that I had to like stop it fairly quickly. And that was a lot of nausea, dizziness. I just felt kind of like I had like the flu for like almost the whole, because it's every week, so it would last for days, and then it was basically time for the next shot. By the time it went away, I would get really tired for most of mine, whether it was an injection or still from the infusions. The Actemra, I really like it because it's only once a month, so I'm maybe a little more tired the next day, but in general, I don't have too many side effects for that, besides just normal, little exhausted, little headache maybe, but nothing too unmanageable. So methotrexate was definitely the biggest one. That was the hardest to deal with. I think from the injections, sometimes I could just get a little tired or anxious leading up to the shot. Sometimes I don't always sleep well after the shot. Yeah, those are kind of the main ones. But I'm lucky that Actemra doesn't have anything too severe for me.
I agree with the methotrexate because I've been on it 7 years on and off. It was definitely challenging. I think at the beginning it was pretty good, like I was okay with it, but then the hair loss, like I would see clumps of hair in my bathroom, or I would
Yeah, that's
feel
so hard.
nauseous after a while, or even just like not eating sometimes and then feeling nauseous after. It would just be really bad to the point where I'm like, how do I get rid of this medication?
Yeah, now that you say that, the not eating a lot is one of the main ones for me too. I have like sometimes I either just won't be hungry or I'll be nauseous and like nervous to eat, but then sometimes I like need to eat, so it's hard to balance because that can make it worse if you don't eat. But trying to figure out what's best for you for each of the medications.
Yeah, and then I think a lot of the biologics, I haven't actually had that many side effects with them compared to methotrexate, which
Me
seems
too.
pretty
Yeah.
similar, yeah. I think the only thing was maybe some sort of like discoloration around my neck originally, but it went away because my like doctor
Okay.
gave me this like shampoo to use that helps with discoloration and
Oh,
it went away.
interesting.
So it was fine. And yeah, I think it's mainly the methotrexate. A lot of patients that even come on the podcast or I've talked to just say like there's just a lot of side effects and a lot of people experience it.
Yeah, everyone hates methotrexate.
I know you talked a little bit about kind of how the insurance process works, but you were mentioning how one of the medications was too expensive and then that's why you had to like try something else. Can you talk a little bit about the process of these medications in the States?
Yeah, so my doctor first, I would be at the rheumatologist appointment, and he would look at like my blood tests and just like my history, and be able to have ideas in mind of thinking that because this area of medications worked, I'd be more likely to have success with like Enbrel or Humira. But they would make me do a bit because those are so expensive, like several $1,000s a week, I think. Obviously, insurance helps a little bit, but sometimes it's still even expensive with the co-pays. But so they would make me try the cheaper ones. I think everybody kind of starts with methotrexate before biologic here because it's the cheapest. And a lot of people, it does work, but the side effects are just so bad. So they make us usually start with that, and then we can go on to other ones. And then sometimes they do something called a biosimilar, which is like very close to Humira, but not like the name brand. And then if that still doesn't work, then maybe you can try the name brand. So it's a little annoying that they kind of care more about the money over like the doctor's orders, and it can slow the process. So I was on like several months of like multiple different medications before I could get to the Humira that worked for a good while, where I could have avoided some flares or like stopped it earlier if I had been on the one that like my doctor originally recommended. So I've been trying to help with that with the Arthritis Foundation. They do a lot of work here in America for like we go to advocacy days at the different like capitals and try to get rid of laws like that to focus on what the doctor and like you think rather than the insurance companies, because that big step therapy is what they're trying to get rid of, which is the trying the cheaper medications first.
I know, and I've seen you be part of that online, and that's just amazing work. So thank you for doing that for other patients, because I think in the long run, it'll definitely make such a big difference. I wanted to talk about the social aspects of being diagnosed with arthritis because you were diagnosed at a pretty young age. So how did you tell the people around you, like your peers, your teachers, that you had arthritis and what that looked like?
Yeah, I kind of went through phases throughout my life of like being more open or being more like not wanting people to know, which I feel like is kind of normal. So when I was pretty young, my parents kind of explained it to like my friends' parents and stuff, like if I was like going to like a sleepover or something, or just so that they kind of knew. What my like one of my best friends in elementary school around when I was diagnosed, her mom had rheumatoid arthritis. So the mom was helping us with like kind of figuring out the signs early on, which was really nice. And she helped me like wrap my knee and stuff like that to see if there was anything they could do to help in the meantime while we were going throughout the whole process. So then that one of my best friends was really good about kind of knowing about arthritis and how severe it was and like knowing how to support someone when they're in pain, and things like that, and kind of knowing what to say even though we were young. So that was really helpful. I was really just lucky to have very good friends throughout my whole life where I feel comfortable talking to them. One of the best things for me was being involved with the Arthritis Foundation, so that if there was like a walk to cure arthritis that I was going to, I would invite my close friends and be like, and that would be a good way to segue into like oh yeah, so I have arthritis, blah, blah, blah. And then usually I would tell them before, and that would be kind of just like a point where that they would be pretty involved in like supporting me anyways. But seeing me post about those events I'm a part of kind of opens the doors to conversations and makes it a little bit easier. Sometimes I kind of just have to tell them if like I'm limping a lot or if I fall and like clearly my knee is really bad, like I'll have to say something. So sometimes it kind of just depends on the situation, but I always start with like my closest friends, and then now after college especially, I don't really care anymore. But I think like middle school and high school could be harder, where I didn't want people to know as much and didn't really want it like being talked about. But now I'm a lot more willing to share because I know it spreads awareness, and I can't expect people to like support me if they don't really know. And usually 9 out of 10 times they're like really eager to support. So they like when I like vent to them about how I'm feeling so that they can know how to help me and things like that.
That's amazing. And definitely you get more comfortable as you grow older with the disease, and you know how to talk about it or who you should tell and shouldn't tell. Because I think when you're growing up, you're kind of like, do I tell this person? Do I not tell this person? All of that stuff. Have you ever had any like bad experiences with arthritis in terms of like socially?
I've definitely had some experiences of people like not really understanding, and I've had some people like imply that I'm using it to like get a certain accommodation, like getting more time for something, or at like a sports thing if I like don't like thinking that I just like don't want to run, things like that. But now when I surround myself with like positive people that I know will never think that, even though I think everybody kind of has those thoughts of like not wanting to let people down, and wanting to like push themselves a lot of times past the limits. So there's definitely been some moments over the years where they don't understand, or they imply, or they say like random things like, oh, have you tried yoga? Or like, oh yeah, my arms hurt too when I'm doing a lot of exercise, and it's not the same obviously. But I kind of just try to brush those off, and everybody that like I really care about would understand.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say the similar, like really similar things that you mentioned, like giving advice that doesn't make sense or trying to relate to your pain level, which doesn't make sense oftentimes. But I think it's just their way of trying to help, but they just don't know that the help is not very helpful. But I feel like it's not coming out of like some sort of bad place. Like they're just trying to be nice. It's just coming up maybe the wrong way to someone that looks
Yeah, and sometimes people just don't know what to say. Most people haven't heard of juvenile arthritis, so they don't really know what, like, they only know old person arthritis, so they think it's just like your fingers get stiff or something, but they don't understand like the being on injections and all that lifelong stuff.
And then you are also going to be a teacher now. So did your journey with living with arthritis shape your career path in any sort of way?
So I've definitely always wanted to be a teacher or do something with kids. I've always had a passion for working with kids, and I've always wanted to do like one of the younger grades, like kindergarten, first grade. So I've always had it in the back of my mind, but growing up, I've definitely had some teachers that have been very supportive and some that haven't been the most supportive. So it kind of definitely influences like the kind of teacher I want to be, having more empathy for students because you never really know what they're going through. So I definitely want to be somebody that's not like crazy strict about deadlines if someone opens up about something that they're going through, because chances are that they really are doing the best that they can, and they just sometimes can't push themselves any further. So I do think, even talking to like different teachers at schools I work with and stuff, I think they always tell me that I have really great perspectives on like understanding students and supporting them however I can. I think I'm pretty natural to like make accommodations for students, whatever the issue may be that they're dealing with, because that's just kind of from my own experience. I know how I would want to be helped, and I try to do that for the kids I teach.
That's amazing. And I'm glad that you're able to reinforce some of those things that you've learned and you've felt and faced to make sure that other students don't feel that way. I feel the same kind of for medicine because I want to go into the healthcare field. Like every experience that I've kind of faced in the healthcare field, like I don't want patients like that to face the same things. So I think we're like different career paths, but same concept.
Yeah, definitely.
Exactly. And then did you face any challenges like trying to find people living with arthritis when you were growing up? Like, were you primarily surrounded by people that weren't living with the same condition as you?
So I was diagnosed when I was 8, and around when I was 9 or so, in one of my doctor's appointments, so about like a year later, my doctor was like, and you know about the painted turtle, the camp, and we were like, what? So then he told us about a camp for kids that had a session for kids with juvenile arthritis, and so we were surprised. We didn't know at first. So it had been about a year, but I was also doing pretty well at that time, so I wasn't like desperate to find people necessarily, even though it would have been really helpful from the beginning. But at that time I was kind of in a good place. But I did go to camp, and then that turned out to be like my biggest life support, where I'm still involved there today. I've met some of my best friends there. So I was pretty lucky. After about a year, I was suddenly surrounded by so many people that understood what I was going through and could relate, and that I could talk to if I was ever stressed or overwhelmed, or like talk to for advice about doctor's appointments and medications. Have you been on this medication? Things like that. So once I went to camp, kind of everything changed, and I was so much more comfortable and like became a better advocate for myself and others, and was inspired to make a difference. And so that was like a really good starting point for me. And then I got involved with the Arthritis Foundation not too long after, and I started going to, they have national conferences and things like that where I meet people from all over the country. So I've been very blessed to have lots of amazing friends that are living with arthritis or similar conditions. And just from going to those things, other people that volunteer for those organizations that may not have the condition, but because they're so passionate and such kind people, they become such supportive friends, even if they can't actually relate. So I'm very lucky to have amazing friends with and without arthritis.
That's amazing, and I'm glad you have a supportive community. I think having a mixture of both is definitely helpful. And I think for me as well, like I found that it was sometimes I can tell things to my friends that do have arthritis stuff versus the ones that don't, and just you build your support system over time. And I think just prioritizing what your needs are is really important, and you kind of see like who cares about you and who's going to support you through that.
Definitely.
So you mentioned that you've been to camp, which a lot of people I've talked to in Canada too that have been to the arthritis camp here have said that camp has been super helpful, and just like a great way to meet other people and spend time with people living with arthritis. Like I've never been to camp, but I've just heard so many great things. So can you talk a little bit about how this camp actually works?
Yeah, so camp is like my favorite place in the world. I've met so many of my best friends. I like couldn't imagine life without it. So I started going when I was very young, and I never missed a summer, never missed a family weekend. And now as soon as I turned the age to volunteer, I've been a counselor there for all summer, throughout the year, for weekends. My camp is a little different than some of the arthritis camps. So there's different weeks throughout the year. So they have spring and fall family weekends. And then in the summer, there's a week of sleepaway. So I would go to the rheumatic session when I was younger. And so each week there's a diagnosis-specific session. And you kind of just get to like forget about your diagnosis for a week. You get to do a bunch of activities that are fully accessible to any of your needs, whether it's going up on the ropes course when you're in a wheelchair or riding a horse. They have every accommodation you could dream of to make it possible. And the best thing is just that everybody around you gets it, so you never have to explain why you need an ice pack after lunch or anything like that. Sometimes as you get older, you have more conversations about like how it affects you. But when I was younger, it was kind of just like the escape I needed to not have to worry about arthritis and just feel like normal for a week. So they have the specific weeks, and then they even have programming for caregivers to meet other caregivers and siblings, because obviously the diagnosis can affect a sibling too. So they can relate to people and see how they can best support their siblings and also feel special, since sometimes they may get a little jealous or scared, and all those mixed feelings that come with being a sibling of a child with a medical condition. So it's something I'm just really passionate about, and I love to give back because it's done so much for me, and I just couldn't imagine my life without it. So I definitely see it always being a part of my life and something that I'm so thankful for.
Amazing. Thanks for sharing your story. I mean, initially, when your parents put you in this camp, did you have any like second thoughts, like, what am I doing? Or was it just like, okay, let me just get into this and see what happens?
So I was pretty lucky that I went to a family weekend like in the spring. So I got to like check it out first with my family. I met a few people that I knew would be going in the summer. So that definitely made it a little bit easier. I was definitely nervous. I feel like I got nervous every year, no matter how much I loved it, just because that's normal for going to a sleepaway camp. But I had already been there and I'd known like how amazing they have doctors on site. I knew how everybody was the kindest people you'll ever meet. So that definitely eased my nerves going into it. I was of course nervous to like be away from parents and may not know anybody in my cabin, things like that. But my fears quickly went away because it's just the most amazing place. You can't even describe it. So I was definitely nervous, but I knew it would be worth it. And I was crying when I left. So that definitely says that I loved it.
Yeah, thanks for letting me know. So, as a camp counselor, what do you hope that children gained from going to this camp?
So I definitely hope that they're able to get, I think every child has like a different like goal in mind. Like the younger kids may just want to forget about their illness and feel normal. The older kids may want to like find people that understand and like talk about it more. So whatever they want, I hope that they're able to achieve that and then a bunch more even after that. I think our main goals are to get boosted in confidence, self-esteem, independence, maybe become a better advocate for yourself by telling your counselor something you may need. A lot of people maybe in the healthcare field, but some people may just be very kind individuals that want to give back and volunteer to a local organization. So they might have to spread awareness to them. And so I hope that they're able to get more comfortable speaking up for their needs and trusting people to be able to support them and opening up more throughout their journey with whatever condition they may have. For us, mostly arthritis.
Can you talk about a significant experience that you had while in camp?
Yeah, I've had so many. I think definitely the first time I set foot there and like met somebody with arthritis, I think it didn't really like click at first when I was so little that like everybody had arthritis. I knew it was like something related to like my arthritis and stuff. But when my mom like called me over to like meet this one little girl around my age, and she's like, she has arthritis too, and I was like mind blown. And it was like kind of towards the end of the weekend, so like I knew in the back of my mind, but I hadn't really like talked to somebody specifically about it. I was just kind of like meeting all these friends and doing these fun activities. So I remember like the first person I met that's still one of my very best friends today, and how that was just so cool for me to like meet another little kid with arthritis, and then we like exchanged numbers and started planning to meet outside of camp and things like that. So that was like where I really felt like a good support system going in. And then I also remember just little moments where like I thought I couldn't do the ropes course because I've been told that I couldn't do things that are so hard on my joints, things like that. But then seeing like the accommodations and how kind everyone was, where I didn't have to be embarrassed if I needed a break or something like that. That was like a really cool moment to see like I really can do a lot of things even with arthritis, and I don't have to be embarrassed, and I don't have to let it limit me. And so just those two changing points stuck with me throughout my life.
It can be really hard to accept your diagnosis after kind of living life without a diagnosis, because you were diagnosed at a young age, but you had a life without arthritis.
Yes.
So when you were initially diagnosed, what was your mindset towards just arthritis in general?
I was definitely just really confused. Like I didn't know what that meant. I maybe had like vaguely heard about it, but only from like older people and things like that. And a lot of times it's like people making jokes about arthritis where like I've heard it, but I don't even know about it. So I kind of was confused, like, I'm just a little kid, what does that mean? And even my parents were also didn't know that kids could get arthritis. They were like, what, arthritis? Like, she's 8, what do you mean? Like, they probably thought the doctors were crazy. So I was definitely just like, didn't really know what to process. And I remember going back to the car after the appointment where we called my friend's mom, who was the one who had rheumatoid arthritis that I mentioned earlier, and talked to her a little bit about it. So I kind of understood like what the symptoms meant and how like it was a good thing to have to know answers so that we could get medications or just have an answer to know how to help me. So then that was a little more encouraging, where I was trying to think about how this was going to turn good into maybe I won't be in pain soon because now I have somebody to take care of me and look after me through the doctors. So it was a lot of overwhelm, and I kind of tried to like not think about it at first and just kind of like still be a normal kid. But obviously you have flare-ups, and I was thrown into it kind of fast with like getting a procedure pretty quickly and things like that. I had casts on my leg, so it's kind of a lot of changes all at once. But I was able to kind of get through it and just educate myself. Even though I was a little kid, I wanted to learn about it and see how I could give back, how I could help my friends understand it.
When I was diagnosed with arthritis, I was in like a similar boat as you, in a sense that I also had kind of my life without arthritis, and then having life with arthritis was like learning how to adapt and cope with this new disease. But I think my mindset also changed, which I feel like it happens to a lot of people. Like, you have this period of denial, or like, I don't know what to do with this, or just like not knowing what your life will look like in the future. And then I think for a lot of like younger people listening, it's like things actually get better. And I think for me, like, I did not think that it would have, but it did. So that's something that I also kind of experienced as well. What are some things that your arthritis has taught you?
So my arthritis has definitely taught me a lot. I think I'm a lot more empathetic person. Like, it reminds me that I never know what somebody's going through. So I think I've been able to become a lot more like compassionate. I've always tried to support my friends, obviously, and always be a kind person. But this reminds me that like I look fine on the outside, but really I have a lot going on. So I try to be able to extend those empathy and like how I would want people to treat me to everybody I meet. It's definitely also helped me to change my perspective and be more optimistic. I think it's helped me to just know how to like appreciate the little things, like when I'm having a good day. And if I wake up and I'm not having much pain, little things like that, I can just find joy, whether it's, even if I'm in a big flare, like maybe I can't go out and do something huge like go to Disneyland with my friends, but I can go on a little walk or go out to lunch with friends and things like that. So it's helped me to be able to not be so stressed and like focus on the bad, but also be able to look at arthritis has given me so much. Some of my best friends I would have never met. I wouldn't have been able to go to camp, which is my favorite place in the world. I've been able to travel and speak to senators to help people with different laws, whether they have arthritis or different conditions. And I think it's opened so many doors. So I definitely am able to look at the positive and not worry about all the bad.
Yeah, that's a great perspective to have. And for people that are listening, it does get better from what it sounds like. And I think we have both experienced that it does get better, and it can look better in different ways. Like, it doesn't have to be just about medications and like disease activity, but you're right, like opportunities that have opened up for you, people that you've met. Like, we wouldn't be here today talking about your story if like you weren't going to become an advocate and talk about your arthritis publicly. So like, I think a lot of what this diagnosis has done is given us opportunities to share our story and talk about it so more people are aware, which is really, really great. You are involved with the Arthritis Foundation. You're doing runs, walks, advocacy stuff, volunteering, fundraising, like lots and lots of things. Can you talk a little bit about how your involvement with this organization, or just like any organization in general, has impacted other young people around you?
Yeah, so I've been so lucky to be involved in the Arthritis Foundation for most of my life. It's a really amazing organization that spreads awareness, funds research, and I've seen so many of the advancements it's made for different treatments that have come out, for new laws that have passed that make access to treatment easier, or more rights for people living with disabilities. Different kids I meet are able to know that they're not alone through the events that they put on and the resources they give. So it's definitely been such a blessing for me to be a part of this organization, and I wouldn't have so many friends and so many resources and opportunities that without being involved in this organization. I've been able to go to so many Walk to Cure Arthritis and Jiggle runs that they do, which are like a holiday themed 5K and then a walk at different like ballparks around us and community areas. And I was even the youth honoree a little while back. So that's given me a voice. And along with many other people who form their own teams, they're able to become an advocate and spread awareness in their own community and then come together for something so much bigger than themselves to help fight for this cause together. And I've seen so many ways that people around me have realized that kids get arthritis too and been more willing to support, whether it's teachers that have come out, they're now more aware of things that their students may be facing and how to be a more inclusive teacher, or bringing out coaches and friends, and bringing out friends to the walks have been a great opportunity for them to get involved and me to be able to strengthen our friendship because I see how much they care about me and support me. So it's definitely had a big impact on people with arthritis or without, all for one big cause that is making a huge difference in so many people's lives.
And then you also have your Instagram page where you kind of showcase what you're doing in the arthritis community and talk about your arthritis. Can you talk a little bit about why you started your page and what you've been doing with it?
Yeah, I started that page in high school around when I was asked to be the youth honoree. And at first it may have been kind of like the opposite reasons. Like I was kind of nervous to post on my main feed. So I made that page for like close friends and people that I knew were already coming to my events, and like to promote with like the people I was comfortable with that I knew would be involved in all of my efforts. And then I started having it grow the platform a little bit more to be able to spread awareness to people outside of my close circle. And it's given me a voice to speak up for myself and others and showcase all of the great work the Arthritis Foundation is doing. And I love to share my story on there and give updates about how I'm doing personally, what I'm up to with the community, highlight friends that are going through similar things and what they're up to, and just be connected to so many people that live in so many different places. It really makes me feel like less alone to have all those people in my corner supporting me. And it's just been a really great opportunity to spread awareness because social media is so easy to spread awareness and teach people about the condition. So even if it's hard for me to talk to somebody in person, if I'm posting about it a little bit, it kind of opens the door to conversations and it makes those conversations easier. So it's just been a great opportunity to get my voice out there and feel empowered to make a difference.
Social media is very powerful and it does reach a lot of people. So I'm glad that what you're doing is really showing a lot of impact within the rheumatic disease community. I wanted to end off with an advice segment. So what advice would you give to young people that kind of need to see their chronic illness in a positive light?
I would tell someone that needs to see their chronic illness in a positive light, whether they're newly diagnosed or just in a hard time of their life, that things definitely get better and to not give up hope and to keep pushing. And then I would try to give them ideas about how they can see the good, whether it's little things that don't take a lot of energy. If you're having a fatigue or high pain day, give them ideas of what's brought me joy and kind of sharing my personal experience to help them open up. And I would say to not be afraid to ask for help, because most of my life I've never really wanted to like bother people or like thought people weren't going to want to help me, or I didn't want to seem lazy, things like that. But I would tell somebody to like believe in themselves and know that they deserve the support and help, and that true people that care about you won't mind. So if you're having a hard time, open up to people around you and don't be afraid to ask for help, because that'll make your whole situation a lot easier to deal with.
Thank you so much, Aubrey, for joining me on today's podcast episode. We talked about your diagnosis journey, also kind of the social aspects of living with a rheumatic disease. We talked about your involvement with the Arthritis Foundation and starting your own platform to raise awareness and showcase some of the engagements that you're involved in. We also talked about arthritis camp and the impact that it's made in your life and other people's lives. And we also discussed kind of friends, family, social life, what it looks like living with a rheumatic disease, and telling people that live with or without arthritis that you have a rheumatic disease and how they can support you. We also talked about mindset and kind of changes of like being upset, but then changing that mindset into being positive, and a little bit about your career as well. So everyone, like, comment, subscribe. Check out Arthritis Foundation's website, which I will link down below, as well as Aubrey's social media channels. And I'll see everyone in 2 weeks on Take a Pain Check. Thank you so much, Aubrey.
Thank you.